morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are watching from. Right, so this week we are talking about something amazing. But before I actually introduce, I just want to say thank you so much for tuning in today. We all know that parenting is a challenging task, right? But one thing that often get parents so confused, even me myself, which I'm going to be sharing today, get also confused is about how to balance discipline and nurturing, right? Because it's like it's almost like a dance between setting boundaries and also showing love. And as a parent, not just a single parent, parents as a whole, it can be especially challenging to find that balance, right? Wanting to be firm and also yet gentle, and also you want to be strong and yet kind. How can you really balance the two, making sure that everything is okay? So that is what me and Nelly we're going to be talking today. So, but before I start, for those who don't know me, my name is Peggy Barre. I'm a survivor empowerment coach and founder of Arise and Thrive Academy. Let me pass it to Nelly to introduce herself and then we can roll. Over to you, Nelly.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to yet another show. My name is Nelly Kwasingui. I'm a social worker, a mother, transformational life coach, and founder of Hand in Hand Community CIC. We are happy to have you here today. So, Peggy has talked about the topic, a very crucial topic, to make that balance. And that's what we'll be looking at today. We will share our experiences, and please share yours with us, because on this platform, we want to learn. We are also struggling with parenting.
Absolutely. I can put my hands up and say, you know what, it's hard. Because if two parents in a household are struggling with their children, what more of a single parent where you're wearing the daddy hat and you're wearing the mommy hat? And sometimes it can be confusing, very, very challenging to balance the two. So our objective today, we're going to be looking at how to set healthy and consistent boundaries without feeling guilt. We're going to be looking at showing love and empathy while maintaining respect. We're going to be talking about how to show love, how to avoid the good and bad cop parenting. That is so important. And we're going to be looking at how to raise confident and well-balanced children. I think I've discussed, just like I've mentioned before, Nelly, and I said one time that because as a single parent, and I've been parenting my kids like more like single-handedly for nearly 7 years, I feel that I struggle within my masculinity and my femininity because I'm wearing two hats. Sometimes I forget and I function only on the masculine aspect while neglecting my feminine aspect, which is the mommy side, the nurturing side, if you get what I mean. Right. So, and as a result of that, sometimes I forget to know that, hey, yes, I can be disciplined, but yet I also need that nurturing side. My children also need to be nurtured. They need to feel like they are with mommy. So I don't know whether you have something there to say, because yes, I'm going to be sharing a lot of that and how it has actually impacted my kids in one way or another, as well as how I have learned, to shift to and how to comfortably shift from that masculinity into femininity comfortably. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for that, Peggy. I mean, when you're a single parent, you have no choice but to be playing both roles, the father and or the masculine and feminine role. But what matters is if you recognize the times that you shift between roles. Because
Mhm.
myself, I am in that role, playing, sometimes I'm the father, sometimes I'm the mother, and it's really, really difficult because sometimes I am struggling. I have personal struggles. And
Mhm.
then to add on top of the, am I the pair, am I the masculine or am I the feminine? Sometimes to myself, it's confusing as well.
Mm.
But then I have developed strategies to take a step back, because sometimes I get so overwhelmed, because how do I resolve situations, and especially situations that are out of my control. I know
Mm.
there's little or nothing I can do when situations are out of my control. So at such moments, I take a step back. But then just knowing when I'm playing the masculine role and when I'm playing the feminine role, and just to remind myself that I need to take a break. So is
Yeah.
for me, is that aspect of constant reminder, is like I'm monitoring myself, that what am I doing? What am I doing? Though sometimes, depending on the situation, it is common that I can be carried away into a particular role. But because I have always reminded myself to know what role I'm playing, it's easier for me to recognize, and then I can shift. Though, like I said earlier, sometimes it's really difficult to make that shift, especially if the situation is a difficult one and action needs to be taken, but then the situation or the main action is out of your control. So then you do what you can do and then leave the rest, because if you want to put on that masculine hat, you will be doing it, but then you'll be hurting yourself because it is out of your control. You need to wait on the other people involved or the other side to do what they need to do to get that
Mm-hmm.
balance.
Yeah. That is so true. That is so true. Because I think if we're looking at it in different aspects, like from, for example, especially if you're especially if you are parenting that child alone or parenting those children alone without the support of the other because we're looking here at two aspects, where that if it in a house where they are both parents, they need to be disciplined and they need to be that nurturing. In a house where even there is single parents, they need to be that discipline and they need to be that nurturing. So it doesn't matter which household, the most important thing is that children need both the discipline and the nurturing. Sometimes we may get carried away with the discipline and we forget the nurturing side. And sometimes we may get carried with the nurturing side and we forget the discipline side. And that is why that balance is important. And speaking for myself, let me talk again about myself before I even mention some like the community of women that I speak to, because there is a lot of triggers, to why there is that lack of balance. So let me talk, for example, I will talk for the fact of if coming out from a relationship where you've been made to feel like, you know what, you are not capable enough of confidently raising your children, right? And where your confidence, even as a mother, has been tampered, right? Because of the negativities that has constantly been poured on you in such a way that you lose your ability, you lose your confidence and your self-esteem as a confident parent. When you are that in that position, trying to raise up your children, it is difficult because now you're looking at maybe the other person is just waiting for you to fail as a parent so that they can confirm their belief or assertion about you, where they can say, okay, you see, I said that she wasn't capable or he wasn't capable of raising those children. That is why the children are failing, right? So in that position as a single parent, you are now trying your best to make sure that you do everything possible to make sure that those children become successful, right? And in the course of doing that, that is where we can miss it. We can either be too disciplined in such a way that we forget the nurturing side, or we can be too nurturing at the point where we forget the discipline side. So the problem is, how do we find that balance? And for me, it took me a while to find that balance. Because at one point, Nelly, I was more on the discipline side. Like, I was like very, very strict with my children, very strict in such a way that they more or less did not see the mothering side of me. And on many, remember, like I said one time, that when I told them one time to rate me, to give me feedback, all of their feedback was just saying, "Mommy, calm down." They say, "Mom, take it easy." They say, "Mom, we want to see you be mom." And that reminded me, that is just to, in fact, it was a good exercise, because it actually made me to realize that at the end of the day, I am a mom. And as a mother, you've got the nurturing side of you that your children want, that nurturing side of you. And for that is when I started learning how to actually find a balance, which has really helped me today and has actually helped the children. Yeah, I don't know, Nelly, you want to say something on that?
Yeah, I mean, thanks for sharing what you've shared. When we talk of consistency and or nurturing and to have that balance,
Mm,
it's not just outwardly, because there are a lot of things that go on within the parent, the single parent.
mm-hmm,
Say, with your emotions, there are so many, like you said before, there are so many triggers. There are things don't move the way we always want. So
mm-hmm,
that is something that can influence how we parent our children, whether we are nurturing or we are disciplined, because sometimes you want to be disciplined, but because of the way you are feeling or what you are thinking at their state of mind, you struggle to put in that discipline.
mm-hmm,
But then you also fail to nurture. Like I said earlier on, for myself, is constantly monitoring, where am I? Where am I? So that when I identify, I can make
mm-hmm,
the adjustments that I can. Because it's not all the time that the adjustments will work. And again,
mm-hmm,
know that we and our children are social beings. We don't expect, because for my children, I don't want them to be very obedient children, because
mm,
I feel that if they are very obedient children, they will be doing the things I want. I like it when my children challenge me, because I don't know everything. And when they challenge me, it helps me to look things from their perspective.
mm-hmm,
So then is, what time, when should I be disciplined? What time should I be nurturing? So it's looking at that fine balance. Though when we talk of fine balance, it cannot be like 50-50. It is
mm-hmm,
situational. That's the way I see it. It is situational, because one time it will be easier, the nurturing side comes up, and the other time the discipline side comes up. But regardless of whether it's discipline or nurturing, there's that aspect of respect that for me is number one. When that
mm-hmm,
respect is there, teach children respect, give them some responsibilities, and
mm-hmm.
then the discipline and nurturing will come in as well.
Yeah, that is so true. And I think that one of the things that we as well need to understand, because I know we're going to be talking about all of the four pointers, that how to maintain that balance. And you rightly said something. The balance is not about 50-50. Balance is situational. That is so true. It's just like, for example, you may get to a point where, even though you're disciplined, you've said to a child that I want you to do this thing by this time. If by that time that child hasn't done that thing, and then maybe in the course of you, maybe in the course of you trying to argue with that child why they haven't done that thing, if that child comes and say, maybe, "Oh, mommy, I've hurt my finger, and that finger is bleeding." Now, at that point, do you maintain that discipline, like, I told you to do this and you didn't do that, blah, 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 blah? Or do you now switch into your nurturing side and empathize with that child and actually attend to that child's need, give that child a hug, even though you know deep inside you that is paining you that they haven't done that thing that you, that you wanted them to do. So that is where you're saying it's situational. So that is how we and for you to be able to, it's a skill, it's an emotional intelligence, it's a skill that I think needs to be practiced, because not everybody has got that skill where you can switch, you can easily switch from that discipline into nurturing. Not everybody, because I myself at one point, I will be so strict on the discipline where I even maybe I'll forget the nurturing, you know. So I think it's something that we need to learn it. And if we learn it, then we can easily switch depending on the situation. And then another thing that I wanted to say is that having
Yeah, because I
speaking with
think one thing that
speaking
I
with
really
yeah,
appreciate.
yeah. You can go on, Nelly.
Okay, I say one thing that single parents do is their flexibility between disciplining and nurturing for those who are able to balance both, because some of them go one way, the discipline side, and forget about the nurturing side, and some
Mm-hmm.
the nurturing side and forget about the discipline side. And either of them has advantages and disadvantages. And I'll
Mm-hmm.
talk about the nurturing side, which, like in my role as a social worker, I've seen it so many times. When parents
Mm-hmm.
go into the nurturing side and then they overprotect the child, they don't give the child the chance to explore, no boundaries, no routines, or if they have routines and boundaries, they are not consistent. They leave it for the
Mm-hmm.
child to choose what to do and what not to do. So that's when parents rely more or focus more on the nurturing side, but then they are doing too much that in a way is damaging the child. And on the other hand, when you become so disciplined, you want to be very strict that what you say the child needs to respect and do exactly as you say. It puts a lot of fright within the child because they would want to do things without thinking. So you give them an instruction, they'll just rush to do that instruction because they don't want to get in trouble. But then they
Mm-hmm.
don't have the time to process that information, to be creative when doing that. So those are just some of the disadvantages for both, which is why it is good to get that balance. And like you said, it's a skill that you need to be practicing, because you can read them off books, it means
Yeah.
nothing. You need to be practicing them on a daily basis. And the times that we get challenged as single parents is during difficult situations
Mm-hmm.
when you need to make decisions there, and you are speaking to a child, you have your own opinion, the child has their own opinion. How do you balance that? When do you put on the discipline hat? When do you put on the nurturing hat? So again, like we've talked about, it is situational. Yeah.
Yeah. True. True. And that brings us nicely. I think the first key point, first of all, to learn, to start to learn that skill, we need to start by setting boundaries. And I think we've talked a lot about boundaries in most of our shows, which again
Yeah.
is a topic that needs to be, it's a continuous learning process, because nobody can even say that I know how to set boundaries. We all like to set boundaries, but how can we enforce the boundaries is another thing. Like for me, I can set boundary as ABC, but how do you enforce that boundary? That is where sometimes, especially in a world where we are so busy as busy parents, you say something today and you even forget that you said it. And maybe that boundary is being violated and crossed, but yet you can never remember that that's the boundary that you set. These are some of the things that also make our children, again, to step over the boundaries and do things that they do as they pleased, because maybe we've set that boundaries and we cannot implement the boundaries. So I think we can talk about the first point, which is how to set healthy, consistent boundaries without guilt. That aspect of guilt there is a massive one, because if you are a disciplinary inclined parent, sometimes you set these boundaries, or maybe sometimes you do things without actually feeling that empathy within you. But then sometimes you set boundaries and then you're feeling guilt for setting those boundaries. You feel like, oh, maybe I was so harsh on that child. I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have done that. But again, it's a skill that we need to learn, that it is okay to set certain boundaries, even if they hurt that child. But by it hurting them, they are learning, right? Because we cannot give them everything that they need. We cannot just keep saying yes, 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 and being a pleasing mom or pleasing dad all the time. There are sometimes that we need to say no. And even if that no hurts them, we don't have to feel guilt, so long as that no was a reasonable no and in the best interest of that child. I don't know whether, Nelly, as a social worker, what do you have to say on that?
Yeah, I think, when explaining or when saying a no to a child,
Mm-hmm.
we need to give further explanations because we understand why we are saying no. But
Yeah,
because of the child's age, they
yeah,
don't understand what the no means. I know when
yes.
it comes to adult conversation, we've heard that no is a full sentence. You don't need to
Mm,
explain yourself after that. But it's different with children because they don't have that experience. So that we need to really exercise effective communication with our children. If
mm-hmm.
we tell them no, give the reasons why, give the advantages, give the disadvantages. And sometimes children will bring their own opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Acknowledge whatever they have said, but then if you know that the boundaries that you are putting in place will be beneficial to them in the long run, explain that to them so that they can think about it. Because if you just say no, the child will look at it as a punitive aspect instead of you
Yes.
promoting their growth. So that's why that
Yes.
explanation is good. And it's to explain depending on the age of the child. So it needs to be age
Mm-hmm.
appropriate so that the child can understand. And when looking at the age, it depends on the child's level of understanding because not all children at the same age understand things the same way. So it's a big skill that
Mm-hmm.
parents need to develop to know when to say what and how to say it.
Yeah. And that is so true. Speaking from experience, especially from, I don't know, the same way we were being raised, where if you say no to a child, you say, and the child say why, you say because I say so. Because no is no. And even though we adult, I feel that sometimes even as adults, we still need to give an explanation why we've said no, to an extent, because again, we have a reason why. Because if we just say no in a blank, to be honest with you, I used to be so guilty of this. In fact, sometimes I still do, where I just say no and that's it, and I don't give any explanation. It leaves that child in doubt, like, they don't even know why you refuse, or why you're refusing that thing. And from there, they can be seeing it as a punitive thing, and they can see your no as a negative, when actually your no is a positive in their best interest. So sometimes it's always good to at least put an explanation to that no. It can be no, can be like, okay, no, not now. Or this is not the right time. It doesn't mean that I'm not going to do that thing for you, but not now. It can be later. So it's about explaining those things. And I think the first thing for me there is about, first of all, we need as parents to first of all identify our limit. Where is the boundary? Our limit. How far can we tolerate certain things? If we are letting, because again, it's about, if we are saying that we can let our child feel free to do certain things, what is the limit? To where they what they can do and what they cannot do, is first of all identify that limit. Because if we identify that limit, then that makes it easier for us to say, okay, I can tolerate you do so and so and so, but do not cross this level. And that is where you start to set boundaries. so that they can know the boundary, they can know your limit. You know, it's the same way I can say sometimes in my house that, for example, I can tolerate you. I don't know. This is just something. There's some stupid things that sometimes I see. I regard so important to me that the kids like, mom, is that serious? But I'll say things like, for example, I can tolerate you. Maybe say, for example, being out up to 10 p.m. but do not cross 11. So it might be a boundary, and that those boundaries sometimes can be more like a house rule or family rules, which can be implemented. And just like you say, we need to be clear with our conversation, like communication, and we need to be calm. Sometimes when we are communicating with our kids, first of all, Nelly, I know you've talked about emotions a lot, that sometimes we as parents, we forget, we speak to them based on our emotions and how we are feeling. And then we project the way we're feeling onto those children. So it's about learning that skills to say, you know what, if I want to have a communication with my child, especially talking to them about healthy boundaries, I need to first of all put my feelings aside. And I need to be clear with them. I need to be calm. I need to be direct. And without apologizing, because sometimes again, as parents, we can be setting boundaries, telling them something, and in the middle of that thing we are apologizing at the same time, which it weakens us sometimes as parents, especially if we know that what we are telling them is the right thing. I don't know whether that makes sense, Nelly. For me, more is about that clear communication, being calm and being direct when we're telling them, when we're setting that boundary with them.
Yeah. Thank you, Peggy, for sharing that. When you talked about apologizing mid-sentence, or when when we are setting the boundaries, that is when guilt comes in. And if we start monitoring to be aware of what we say, how we say it, you would notice the times that you start apologizing mid-sentence, or when you are putting some boundaries in place.
Mm-hmm.
When you are putting boundaries, to me, depending on the age of the child, let it be like in partnership. Because regardless of the child's age, when
Mm-hmm.
a child feels that their opinion has been heard, the child is more committed.
Mm-hmm.
Unlike a parent just saying that you have to do this, you have to do that, which is the discipline side of it, that you need to do this. But then if we include children, no matter how small it is, children want to take that responsibility, or it will give the children the opportunity to know that they have contributed in that thing, even if it is tiny. They
Yes.
take pride in that. And it's the same with the boundary. If we want to set boundary, like for me, I've shared this some time ago. To put boundary, just to go back to what you have said about the time, because sometimes the curfew to be back home, depending on what the activities. If we have it that you get home for, say, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, there might be other times when it will be later. For instance, if they are going for a movie, I wouldn't be expecting them to come back home 7 o'clock if they've left the house at 5:30. But then I ask, how long is the video? Is communication is very important. When you go, if you know that the movie did not start on time, I need to be informed, just so that I don't keep waiting and wondering what is going on. So just to have some level of flexibility there. But the boundary is very important. Make it like very collaborative, include the child in it, and even ask them some questions, because they come up with very good ideas as well.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. You're so right there. And again, it goes back to the point where setting boundaries is not like a fixed rule. It's like a fixed thing that you're just going to set it. It's not set on stone. It can change depending on the circumstances. But the important thing is to communicate the changes. Let it be clear why there is that, why is there that change, and then to be consistent is also important. Another thing that I wanted to
Yeah.
talk about, which again around the boundaries, is we need to let go of the need to please. So sometimes as parents, especially like depending on the circumstances where we are coming from, maybe we are coming from somebody who is coming from, say, a broken relationship, or somebody is coming from, I don't know, abroad, right, where they don't know the system. Okay, they're coming from abroad where the disciplinary style abroad is different from where in the country where they live, because they're too massive. That is one of the difficulties that I'm facing with, where parents are facing in the community. Where they come from Africa, discipline is okay, where a child is disciplined, and disciplined in whichever situation. We've talked about this in our previous session before. And then they come into in a country where it is different. So, and that they are being told that if you discipline your child, that child is going to be taken off you. So the information can be distorted. And the parents sometimes are left confused. They don't know how to. And this is where, if they're not very, very careful and learn very quick to balance that discipline and nurturing, the child, it may affect the child in other way. In which way? It may affect the child in a negative or positive way. You understand? If they become too nurturing because they are scared that disciplining their child is going to take that child away from them, and then they become too nurturing, that can also spoil the child. If it can let the child to get away with everything, which in the long term can affect the child. So depending on which direction we are coming from, sometimes it's very important to let us come back to the objective. Why are we setting that boundary in the first place? And why do I need this child why do I need this thing to be in that way? And it's about putting ourselves as the parents. For me, it's about explaining things to that child and using the clear statement, especially the I statement. There are times that I'm guilty of this. There are times that when I want to explain something to my child, I will use like 3 different statements in a sentence. I will take it from this direction, and then the next minute I'm in the direction. It confuses the child in the way where that child is asking, wondering that, what do you really want? What do you want me to do? So this is the point where we as parents need to be clear and use that I statement. For example, I feel hurt if I tell you to do something and you deliberately don't do it. I feel hurt because you did not do so and so. So we need to use that I statement so that that child can understand the impact of their action on us as parents. Because if we don't use that I statement and it's clear to them, they're going to keep doing it, without realizing how that thing is impacting us. So I think for me, that is one thing that I learned very, very, very quickly, to make sure that I different and not talk too much without because I know African parents. In fact, I'm guilty of this. If I want to say one thing, just maybe by advising a child on one point, I can say 10 different things and it leave the child confused. Yeah, I don't know whether you have something to say on that, Nelly.
Yeah, like you've talked of African parents and parents who have come abroad, the disciplinary or the and there are two different things, different. And what I find is when we look at it, it's not only parents who are immigrants, even the citizens. Because, many years ago, in, say, the UK, for example, the way they live life is the same as the way we lived in Africa. So it was during the Industrial Revolution that things started changing. So this aspect of discipline, when parents come into the country, and because they don't know the differences in parenting as compared to where they've come from and here, they easily get in trouble because the child goes to school and without intending to get their parents in trouble, they just say it like children do, just say things the way the things go on at home, not knowing that they are implicating their parents. And when parents are called into school by probably the safeguarding lead or it goes to social services, parents now want to do things to please the child. So the nurturing comes in, and then they put the discipline to the side. And it has gone to the extent where parents are saying that the government, now they put it that the government has taken away their responsibility. No, not responsibility. They cannot discipline their child.
It's taking their
Because
power, more like
the
power.
children will be taken into care. So the government has taken their power. So I think it was just last week, there was a post around similar to what we are talking about. And I commented, I said, there's no law that says parents should not discipline their children. There's no law depriving parents of disciplining their children.
Yeah.
So it is parents now who, because of fear, are letting go of the discipline and then focusing on the nurturing. And when they're focusing on the nurturing, sometimes, I don't know if it's because I've done this for quite a while, sometimes it's easy to pick up on the parent who is doing that out of pressure and not that willingly, because that behavior comes up. It's like the public self, they want to do it in the public, and you can easily identify certain or some of those behaviors that are forced. And then going to the other side, when parents want to use the discipline, most times parents will tell the children not to talk to the teachers or anyone about what goes on at home. And then it leaves the children in a state of fear. And then if it eventually comes out, then probably it has been going on for such a long time. And that is where social services will look into, because they focus on the impact on the child. And imagine if that's been going on for months and years, and the social worker who is doing the investigation finds out, then they will go, it might be significant harm and things like that. And this is where you see parents be saying that, no, my child is being targeted, without understanding that it is the impact, how long that child has been going through that treatment, or the behavior, whatever the disciplining has been going on at home, is the impact. So sometimes parents miss that a lot and just focus that the system wants to take their children away.
Absolutely. And this is where awareness is very important. And because awareness, if you're aware of something, awareness eliminates fear to an extent. Because whatever thing you're doing, you are confident that you know the law, and you're acting within the law, and you're acting within your right as a parent. It is okay to tell a child off if they're wrong. It's okay. So sometimes when we don't know this thing, like you say, in public, we would try to look as pleasing parents, like, oh, we are that nurturing, nice parents. But then the question is, how are you at home? Are you consistent? Are you putting a different face when you are out in the public, and at home you're wearing a different hat? Or are you being consistent in and out? Because these two will actually determine whether you are actually nurturing and disciplining that child, and that is how the children are going to take it, take you either seriously or just walk over you in a way, like unquote unquote. Because I've seen children who who will actually disrespect their parents, like, they will give instruction and the child will say, no, I'm not doing it. So again, this is where we lower our power, we give away our power, and then we tend maybe and blame another person, that, oh, the government or this one. No, we've just given our power because we've refused to be aware, we've refused to learn, and we've refused to develop ourselves as confident parents. Another thing that I just wanted to also add, that as part of the boundaries, setting boundaries, again, it's about being consistent, right? We need to be consistent, and being consistent, we need to refrain from guilt. Like we've said, we don't set boundaries and be guilty over it, especially if we know that that boundaries has been set. It's a healthy boundaries that has been set for the best interest of you and the child. There is nothing to be guilty about. And we need to be prepared for resistance. When we set boundaries, remember that there are certain things that that child is not going to like, and be prepared, they're going to resist, especially if they are at certain age, maybe they're teenagers and all of that. No, they're going to look at that your boundary and say, no, I'm not going to respect that boundaries. That is when, if they resist it, how are you going to deal with it? Are you going to, and this is why Nelly was saying that sometimes by setting those boundaries, it is important to actually set it in collaboration with them, especially if they are teenagers or they are a certain age. Set it with them, so that when you set it with them, then the chances of them respecting that boundary is high, because they gave their input in setting that boundaries. But if we just go and then we set the boundaries by ourselves on our own, without giving them the voice to it, then the chances of them resisting it is going to be high. And when they're resisting that boundary and we're trying to force it, that's where it creates conflict now between us and them, which is not good. That is where we want to avoid. We want to avoid that conflict, because when we create, when conflict is created and we don't manage the conflict responsibly or manage the conflict well, it leads to other things which may actually jeopardize our relationship with our children, which we don't want. And then again, another point is to talk. We need to try and practice self-compassion, right? And we need to take care of ourselves. It's not about trying to be pleasing, like we must be 100% right. As parents, we need to acknowledge that we are parents and we are human beings. We are fallible. There are sometimes it will go well. There are sometimes it will not. But let us not torture ourselves and say, oh, maybe because I did not do this right, that's why my child is behaving this way and that way and that way, right? We have to practice some self-compassion. We need to be able to acknowledge what we're doing right and then improve on the things that we think needs to be improved. And we need to start small. It's not about just starting big and jump into something and feeling that everything we're going to achieve that thing. No, we need to start small, step by step, to be able to be able to achieve, an enforceable, healthy boundary. So yeah, that's just one I wanted to add, Nelly. Before, I don't know whether you want to add something before we move to the next point.
Yeah, I want to add something about the working in collaboration when you're setting boundaries, because most of the time, or this is what I've heard a lot, like parents will say, I am the parent, I know more than you, I know what's good and what's bad for you, and everything. And so because of that, you need to do this, you need not to do that. And in that way, they are imposing on the child, and that's when retaliation comes in. So when you work in collaboration with your child, it doesn't mean that you are giving away your powers to that child. No, it means that you are giving that child a level of responsibility. And by working in collaboration, it helps on your bond, you build a closer relationship with your child, because
Mm-hmm.
your child feels that they are being respected, and it is highly likely that they will collaborate with the boundaries that both of you put in place than when you impose it on them. Because sometimes when you impose those boundaries on the child, it doesn't sit well with them, because every individual have their own way of doing things.
Mm-hmm.
So is to be aware of that and take a step back before you start implementing or setting those boundaries with your child.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the second point that we need to talk about is showing love and empathy while maintaining respect. I don't know, Nelly, you have some pointers on this. How do we show love and empathy while maintaining respect? Hello, Nelly, can you get me?
Yeah, love and empathy. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I said love and empathy. So, I think we have been speaking and just mixing things up. Because when we want to show love and empathy, we need to acknowledge what the child is saying, because sometimes we don't validate the child's feelings. The child might want
Mm.
to say something and we just ignore that, and that's really, really hurtful. So, to be empathic, we need to first of all validate whatever feeling that child has expressed to us.
Mm-hmm.
And then they will know that, yes, though you've not solved the feelings that they are going through, but you have recognized that they are going through that feeling. And then you give them some reassurance. So that's how we can support our children,
Mm-hmm.
or be there showing that love and empathy.
Yeah. Absolutely. And the respect aspect is very, very important, because the respect is more of them. We can show them the love and empathy while still maintaining the boundaries that we have set. It doesn't sometimes it doesn't it's just like we said earlier on. If we said that they were going to, say for example, um put their clothes in the washing machine, right, and they haven't done that. If in the middle of that they come saying, "Oh mommy, I hurt my arm," that is when you need to pause on the other side, attend to them in their emotion, because that time they need that love and empathy at that moment. Deal with that love and empathy. But when that love and empathy session is over, reiterate on the fact that they need to put their clothes in the washing machine. That instant, that love and empathy should not swallow up the discipline side of what they had to do. So it's about making sure that we are on board, making sure that if we said that they were going to do this, they have to do that thing. Sometimes you may cry. When you finish crying, cry and wipe your tears, you will still go and do that thing that I said you were going to do, or that thing that you were supposed to do, or that thing that we both agreed that you were supposed to do. Keep your own side of the bargain, right? Because sometimes kids they can play over our emotion as parents as well, especially if they find that we are weak, or maybe we keep changing goalposts, or maybe we keep changing boundaries without being consistent. They tend to play on our emotions, right? So this is where it is very important. Make sure that no matter how pleasing, give them the hug, the praises, the hug, the kisses, or whatever thing you give them. But remember at the back of your mind that they have to still do what they had to do. That is where they begin to respect you as a parent. I don't know if that makes sense, Nelly.
It does, yeah, it does. And at the back of that, there's a lot of modeling emotional regulation, because to manage with what you have just explained, that flexibility,
Mhm.
you need to be able to regulate your own emotions and what you want your child to do. And
Mhm.
when you regulate your own emotions, when you are able to regulate your emotion, and they are learning as well how to manage their emotions.
Yeah. Yeah. It's lagging there. I think Nelly is a bit frozen there. So yes, I think what Nelly was trying to say is about we need as parents need to really practice how to
Sorry, I think
regulate
I
our
went off for
emotions.
a bit.
Yeah, you went off for a bit. You went off for a bit. So I was just trying to at least continue on what you were trying to say about that emotional regulation, which is very, very important. How can we easily switch our emotions without it affecting us and also affect our children and do so smoothly? That is where emotional intelligence come into play, where we need to be emotionally intelligent. Some parents lack that emotional intelligence, right? Where they're just so rigid in such a way that a kid may be complaining about something and they easily just dismiss the feeling. But we need to be able to learn how to easily switch in between that feeling, but then making sure that we nurture them as well as maintain that discipline. And then another thing, important point that I also wanted us to talk about, which is the third point, is about avoiding good cop and bad cop parenting. Oh, Nelly, I don't know whether I want to say something because I have a lot to say on this. Good cop and bad cop parenting.
Go on, continue.
Right. So and this good cop and bad cop parenting, it can happen in different scenario. It can happen when both parents are in the same household, the mom and the dad, they are in the same household. It can happen when the parents have separated, maybe because of whatever thing has happened and the parents have separated. And this idea of good cop bad cop parenting style is when one parent is trying to outdo the other or make themselves pleasing to the children, and then the other one is trying to put on the disciplinary hat where they forget the nurturing aspect. And this can actually damage the children in such a way that it will affect the parenting as well as affect the children. Let me give for example, in a situation where maybe both parents, like have separated, and like we said before, they because the one parent is trying to please the children, that parent can be susceptible to just saying yes and yes and yes to whatever that child is doing, right? Yes and yes to whatever that child is doing, while the other parent is trying to implement a stricter boundary, right? The children may begin to say, you know what, I'm going to go towards mom because mom is weak, or mom is favorable, or mom is nice and nurturing. But then maybe the other side, maybe dad is not nice and nurturing, or it can be the other way. Sometimes the dad can say, you know what, I'm going to give these children whatever thing they want. If they ask any type of gadget, I'm going to buy for them. I'm going to be pleasing to them. I'm going to say yes to everything that they do, in order to play that good cop, that good parent, good parenting, while disvaluing what the other parent is doing to try and keep that balance. So this is what is causing a lot of problem within homes and around parenting. I don't know whether you agree with that, Nelly.
Yeah, I think when it comes to the good and bad cop, most of the time, from my experience, is that the parents are not doing whatever they are doing for the
Yeah.
focusing on the child, especially the parent who is still holding the grudge against the other parent. They are
Yes.
doing whatever they are doing to get at the other parent and not the
Yes.
best interest of the child.
Yes.
So it could be good, it could be bad, but when parents have separated, it's good they work on themselves and then
Yeah.
focus on the child, put the
Mm-hmm.
relationship behind them, because the two parents brought up these children and they need to
Mm-hmm.
focus, make sure that whatever they are doing is for the best interest of the child or the children. But like going
Yeah.
back to what you said, one parent will be doing something else and just directly contradicting the other parent because they want
Yeah.
to prove that they have power, they have, and then just looking for a gap when the other parent will fail and they'll be like,
Yeah.
I told you, you can't do anything without me, and things like that.
Mm.
But then the focus needs to be on the children, to provide for the children.
Yeah. That is so true, Nelly. And this is where it's very important that, as we've said in other on our episode, at the end of the day, there is no competition here when it comes to raising our children. We, both parents, whether or not they decided to bring those children did not choose to come on this earth. And the least that we can do as parents, just like we've said in in other episode, is to keep our differences behind and work in the best interest of those children. And that means we as parents, both parents, need to be singing from the same hymn sheet. That is what create consistency. That is what create discipline and nurturing. And this is where both parents need to agree on what are the boundaries that we are setting for these children. How are we going to implement those boundaries? How are we going to communicate those boundaries? How are we still going to stay in, like, relevant and make sure that our voice is being heard without actually starting, like, without actually giving away our power or giving away our voice? So this is where, no matter what has happened, we need to keep our emotions apart as parents and then parent those kids in the best interest of those children. And so I think that is so important. There is no need for wearing, because honestly, at the end of the day, I always say these children, they are not dumb. They will know which parent was working in their best interest and which one was not, right? The Bible says we should, anyway, they say we should train up a child in a way that they will grow and not depart from it. A parent that has actually nurtured that child, nurtured a child and disciplined that child will get to know that, yes, this parent nurtured me and disciplined me, and I'm happy that they did what they did because it made me who I am today. But a parent that only nurtures and maybe just, let everything easy for that child, they will also realize it. And on the other hand, a parent that only disciplined and did not care about the emotions of that child in the long term is going to affect that child mentally. And that child is also going to realize that that parent did not do well. So it's about finding a balance. It's not about punishing another parent. It's about making sure we act in the best interest of these children. Yeah. So I don't know whether, in short, my battery is dying, and like I said, where I am in my holiday thing, this thing is not, it's not too good. So we'll be rounding up.
Yeah, we'll be rounding up. And what the point you've said there, Peggy, is really important. And I wish majority of parents can adapt what we are talking about. But unfortunately,
Hmm.
when parents separate, they are fighting against the parent and the children are there suffering. So
Yeah.
I just hope that parents can put their differences aside. And I think we'll just go to the last point, that is raising confident and well-adjusted children through balance,
Yeah.
which again relates to the first point that we were talking about, balance. So
Mm-hmm.
let's be there, let's be present for our children emotionally and physically. Because
Mm-hmm.
when children know that they can talk to their parents, that's a massive big step, because even if they go out in the big bad world, they know that they can come home and talk to their parents. Though it doesn't mean that all the time things will be going on smooth, that they can just come and talk to their parents, but at least at the depth of their heart, they know that they can have difficult conversations with their parents and that's where
Yeah.
they'll get the support.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely. And
also
there's
promote
there's one
independence.
particular video. There's one particular video that we did, Nelly, how to rebuild confidence after that video is very important, because that is where we talk about how you as parent
Yeah,
need to first of all be a confident parent to be able to raise confident children. If you as a parent doesn't
exactly.
actually know your worth and know what it means to be confident, then the chances that you're going to raise, children who are low in self-esteem and all of that is very the chances are high. And I always say it doesn't matter the circumstances that we've been through. All of us have been through difficult circumstances. It's about learning to say, you know what, I acknowledge the fact that I need help, or I need to learn this and become who you want to become. There's no need of giving excuses and being playing the victim mindset. No, it's about empowering ourselves, because we want to rewrite the narrative for our children. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, I know your battery is running down, Peggy. I just want to thank you all for this session today. I know for me, it's been a very nice session, wonderful session, picking up so many things from Peggy there. We are just speaking raw from the heart. We have our own difficulties that we are trying to learn, which is why we are here, so we can share our experiences. Because as I'm speaking to Peggy and vice versa, we are learning because we have dealt with things very differently. That's why we want you to hear your experiences as well, so that we can learn. So we've talked about boundaries, and about the boundaries, let us set them and take out the guilt within us. When we say no, let us explain, because our children haven't had life experiences that they will understand what no means. Because when we just say no to them, might take it to be punitive. But once we explain the no to them, they will know that it is for whatever reason. And when we are setting boundaries, let it be in collaboration with our children, depending on their ages, so that they can take that responsibility to know that they have been part of that boundary. We need to model emotional regulation, because to be able to manage our children, we need to manage ourselves first. So you cannot be speaking to your child and crying. So then who would be the parent? So that's when the emotional regulation we need to work on our emotional regulation. We talked about the good and the bad cop. Parents, a lot of the times when they are separated, they focus on what the other parent is doing, and they wish for the other parent to do wrong, instead of concentrating on the child or the children to do whatever they're doing for the best interest of that child or the children. But unfortunately, majority of parents, they will be trying to compete with the other parent that they have separated from, and the outcome is not good, because the child or the children are in the middle, and they are getting confused, not knowing what is really going on. And
Yeah.
for us to be able to raise confident children, we need to be the role models. It doesn't mean that everything will be going on right for us, but once we know how to manage with our emotions, then we will be able to deal with things much better. And getting our children involved, promote their independence.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if you have anything else to add, Peggy.
No, I think you summarized it so well, Nelly. You summarized it so well. At the end of the day, we need to know that nobody owns, we are the parents. We have the power, you know, to be able to exercise that power reasonably in the best interest of our children while protecting our children. So it's so important. And like we said, Nelly, that the first point of us knowing how to balance the nurturing and discipline is first of all doing it for ourselves, learning how to do it. It's a skill. I am still learning it. Up to now, I cannot fully say that, you know what, I am no. I am still in that learning process, how to balance the two. And until we get to the point where we are willing to learn how to balance the two, then we can get it wrong. And if we do, then that means we are also failing our children, because they are going to turn around and say, you know what? No, you did not do A or B or C, which is very important. So thank you so much. I'm so sorry. I have been moving. I had to move from where I was and get my sat. Yeah, at least I've charged my phone, my laptop now. So yeah, but thank you so much for attending, and thank you for watching. For anybody who is going to watch later, thank you so much, and I hope that you learned something from this session. And remember that as parents, hey, you are doing your best. The society may make you think that you're not doing what you're supposed to do as a parent. No, you are doing. Parenting is tough. You are doing, so long as you keep learning. It's a learning process. So yeah, keep doing what you're doing, and we hope to see you in 2 weeks time. And please leave your comment in the comment section. Nelly and I will read the comment. And like we always say, if you want to be a part of this panel, please let us know. We will be glad to bring you on board so that we can talk as a panel. And Nelly, I hope, is there anything else? We say bye-bye.
No, it's just that, I mean, we have been here, just the two of us, for a long time. We need some other people to join us. So please, if you are interested in joining us on this panel, just send us a message and we'll get back to arrange. Thank you so much, and see you in 2 weeks.
Thank you. See you. You take care. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.